joined by Ian Markow today, trainer out of Delray in Florida and the CEO of Markow Training Systems. Uh, you've been in this industry a pretty long time. I want to say, I think I've been following you for at least like 4 or 5 years. I think you've been doing it a long time before then. How long has it been now?
I think it's been like 11, 12 years.
What was your starting point? What was your entry point into it?
Yeah, I started off in crunch, just being like super broke in New York City, like running out of money for peanut butter and jellies and needing a job. The sales job that I had, I didn't get that I when I moved to New York City, I was supposed to have, and then like I also had a restaurant job that I was supposed to have that fell through. So it was out of necessity, and I just kind of walked into the passion that I was lucky enough to find. And I just grinded out at Crunch Fitness in New York City, which is pretty elite. New York has some good stuff and some bad stuff, but in terms of career stuff, it really is so good. And From there, I ended up working at Goldman Sachs, which is like the biggest one of the biggest banks in the world. They have like a really nice gym there. I started off teaching group fitness there, and then I realized I was like, man, like this is not going well. Like, typical group fitness stuff. Just like once you realize how much you can help people, and then you realize how limited you are by the group setting sometimes, and even the mentality of those people that just want to run themselves into the ground, that really pushed me to be even more into the mobility side of things. So that's when I did FRS and like all that type of stuff. Kind of got known as the mobility guy, which was like really cool for a few years. And then after a while, I was like, man, like I can't just keep doing only mobility or like just getting people who want to do splits or whatever that is. So then I kind of branched out into doing a bunch of different things. I worked at a physical therapy clinic. I got into breath work, PRI, kettlebells, exos, training athletes, and just kind of went all around there. Later on, I found, the compression expansion stuff with Alex Effer, Bill Hartman. I'm a huge fan of David Gray. I use his work all the time. And then recently finding you guys was kind of like the next, let's say the next Infinity Stone that I added to my Thanos hand that I'm like currently working on, getting better at integrating it all.
What do you think like drew you to see this as like another piece, or like what was like the standout aspect of our stuff where you're like, oh, this seems different enough for me to want to kind of pursue it and like get educated with it.
Yeah, I think what drew me in originally was actually a lot of the similarities. So like a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about, I think Nate kind of has like, after reading whatever a million books as he did as a kid or whatever it was, he's got a different way of describing everything in his own way. Oftentimes, full disclosure, it makes zero sense the first time and then all the sense in the world the second time, which is kind of like really good cueing oftentimes. Um, but it was a lot of the similarities. I had already been thinking about like fluid dynamics coming from the compression expansion. So that was really cool to like kind of think about the pump in that way and driving that kind of stuff. There's a lot of isometrics in the stuff that I've learned so far. Like I'm all about isometrics. Like that's just such a good starting point. And even like a long-term good quality stimulus is really good. The breath work was obviously really big. I've definitely recently had the idea about how important the jaw, the suction, and that whole like even bringing it down to the esophagus, the throat, just like everything that you guys talk about, and realizing that you guys can really use that frame that work and make a big difference, even more so on the breathing. Like one of the things that I always tell people in terms of like asking about movement is like just a simple cue of like just inhale your heart into your throat, like just something like super small like that is just like, oh wow, like that's actually so different, even though I've learned breath work from 100 different people, right? um and then honestly, Nate was really cool, man. Like our conversations together, he was like really he wanted to help me. He'd like genuinely like a good person, like talking to him in the DMs, like reaching out. I was struggling with autoimmune stuff, and like he was super cool about that. And also just like taking a leap of faith. And then I had one of my clients work with him that I had worked with a really long time and made progress, but also like had a lot of holes, especially because it was years ago that I actually worked with her, and he was able to like turn her around really quick, so that was really cool. So yeah, a lot. I would say that answers it, right?
Yeah, I've been grateful for your trust and all the things, especially before you even had put your toes in the water.
Yeah.
Feel how it felt. It's been cool getting to know you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there really is a lot of similarities. I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways for most coaches is like you really want to find stuff that maybe has a lot of the similarities that you already know or the things that you work, and maybe just taking a different approach, you know? Because obviously, like with PRI and this and breath work in general, oxygen advantage, whatever you want to go to, you know, there's elements of that in all of your stuff, but it's like just explained in a different way or packaged differently, or it's a new exercise that's going to approach that, or um, you know, even like the mewing stuff is really cool to me, especially from a business perspective. Like, yeah, there's this one lady that I just started following, and her stuff is crazy, dude. She's like face hit, you know, like kind of like over marketed, but in a way, but like the way that you can change your face is pretty crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's changing like, for lack of a better term, like the rooster neck. You know how old ladies get all crazy in the neck, and like to see her face change, and she's like 50 something, it like kind of blew my mind. But I know that, you know, like that's essentially what I've been learning through the mewing stuff too, and just being able to put it together and be more consistent with it. But that's kind of the problem with everything, right? Is you got eight different things to do. You got to choose when to do them.
Yeah, it's a commitment. Yeah, they got to commit for an extended period of time doing isolated work or having a clear enough or confident enough schedule that you can mix stuff in and not get distracted or
Yeah.
loaded.
And the trust, like you said, to just keep doing it. Like even just thinking about doing the silent screamer, right? Like you do that a couple of times. Like you gotta be, I mean, you could do it with someone you're not close with, but like that first moment where like you're both about to start to laugh when they open their mouth and you're like, you know, like some of that stuff is like you got to really keep showing up and buying into, right? Or even like I said, like our first call, I was like, man, I don't even know what he's talking about. I don't even feel this, or like I would get lost in the cues instead of like being in my body and just accepting the cues in a way to like actually give myself a chance to feel them, right? It was almost like I needed to like turn off my coaching brain of trying to figure it out and just feel it, right? And like getting that and actually feeling that helps me with my clients now, and like sometimes we'll just laugh at we'll be like, we're about to laugh right now. It's okay. And then we'll get over it, you know?
Yeah, the problem with taking ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
Um, I used to not be able to meditate or do anything that would require me being quiet because there was no quiet. As soon as I stopped doing something active, my thoughts would be very loud. And I think the benefit or the gift, I suppose, of this kind of work is that your thoughts stop interrupting your present state. And it's hard in the beginning. I mean, especially if we have that difficulty of coming to terms with whatever it is that we're saying to ourselves or hearing from ourselves, and then we've created, uh, I don't know, like a circus of noises to kind of distract ourselves from that quote unquote pain. It's always going to be an issue transitioning from our perspective of what we see in the mirror and what's actually sending, like putting all the lights on in the house.
Yeah.
So maybe the mirror can't see the back of the house or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
For
think
sure.
that's part of how we and we've been talking about this recently, Nate. Like we're trying to bring people back to a baseline function in a lot of different respects, and I think our stuff creates so much almost sensory overwhelm at first that it is almost like a flush for your sensory systems, and
Yeah.
it's like people get literally flushed, they get hot when they're doing it, they get panicked, they experience all sorts of like strangeness and discomfort with it. But when they stick with it and start to like feel that sensory information kind of flow again, they're like, oh, this is my capacity to be in my body way easier. And it kind of sounds like that was the case for you, like early on, like it was way overwhelming, both intellectually and in a sensory way, and then you kind of like you adapt it to the same way you adapt with any kind of stimulus.
Yeah, I think the a good example of that, just to put it into an exercise, is like, you know, pinching your nose and breathing. Like the first time you do that, you're like, oh, what the fuck? You really want me to do that? Or before you even do it, you pinch and you're like, what is this guy talking about? Like, how am I going to breathe with my mouth closed? Like, where's the air going to come from? You know, like it's so easy to be like, ah, right? But then you finally calm down and do it, and you're like, oh man, that was so hard. But then 2 weeks later, your client will do it for the, you know, 2 weeks later, and they're like, man, that's so nice. That's so relaxing. And it becomes like this crazy like dichotomy of like you started off by being so panicked by this and now you're craving it because it's like, wow, this actually relaxes me and brings me back to that baseline you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, our brains are not super selective in that they consciously decide why they like the thing they like, but you can it's like finding a spot on a puppy. You can find 1,000 different spots that'll keep that dog there for an hour and a half. And we're effectively learning how to find our spots and then kind of trick ourselves into enthusiasm or engagement, be it focus or motivation or whatever, by way of tickling those spots. So the better we get at being able to drive those factors of, all right, consciously I may not want to do this, but my body is able to engage within this space and it enjoys it. Boom, awesome. I think that's the biggest thing, that we're all just like novelty pushers. We're all like every functional coach or every trainer is kind of like a carny at the same fairgrounds. Like they're all yelling to get the same money out of the same wallets, but the only ones that people hear are the ones they're looking for and or speak to a part of them that they feel like needs to be spoken to. We're not all that discerning, that's myself, anyone else, all not all that discerning on what it is that we need, but we don't know we need. So this quality of like, how good is this program? How good is this program? Majority of things have come out as a byproduct of how well someone markets something. It's
Yeah.
definitely my weak suit. My marketing ability is not my strong suit. That said, my programming, or at least what we put on the paper, what we give to our clients, is better than or of the best quality. And so to create that wherewithal for someone to be like, well, these things are important, these things are important. And then to come to terms with the fact that most people are at like an 8-year-old's development on their ability to process words and feelings at the same time. Well, you're like, what are we trying to do here? I figured we might as well just get the same kibble brand, get a thing that works, keep them interested, motivated, excited,
Yeah.
and fill their bowl up every day. You don't need to give them the movement or the breathing or the whatever. But if you really want to make changes, this is where you come to. I guess my point is that this is just like a game of show and tell, and most people are doing a lot of like describing value without demonstrating value, or they're like poking the buttons and that are like most susceptible or easiest to poke. And at the end of the day, we all just need to be a little bit better at being able to differentiate between certain inputs in our bodies such that we don't have so much energy being drained from our day to day. If that happens, we're going to be more motivated to do all the things that human beings can do physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. Uh, I feel like movement just took on a larger point of responsibility, like a vat of responsibility in the affect of, okay, this is connected, let's incorporate this. Okay, this is connected, let's incorporate this. Because we're not just breath work. We're not just like some idea of trying to correct posture without there being some like deeper layers to that behavior. Um, we're not just emotion, we're not just whatever. And so that integration can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive approach for sure.
What's that?
It's a comprehensive approach.
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's a look into a house that no one's really peering into. It's like a, yes, we are very comprehensive in our integration. That like look into fascia or that look into circulation or whatever it is that we're calling it in that moment. Only because the way that we have approached it is not of the norm. So people, when they look at it, they need it explained before they can process something that is familiar in their mind's eye. And when in the day, I mean, everyone has had some degree of it, but probably not in the setting that we are creating this kind of response.
Okay. Have you found the book has been a good intro to that, to like kind of like buffer or like kind of cancel out some of that learning curve?
Aside breakdancing for preteens and My Turtle Wears a Top Hat, aside those two books,
No, no, I mean your book.
I was just kidding. Yeah, I had no
Okay.
idea. I had no
Okay.
idea what you were really asking.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, the book you wrote, you remember that?
yeah. What about it? What was the question again?
like you're talking about like, this marketing and the disconnect, and sometimes people don't even know what house they're going to peer into or what they're going to get. And I'm wondering if writing that book and then having some people be introduced to the book maybe first, or even concurrently with your stuff like I did, has that been like people are showing up more educated and you can get them to the next level faster because they went through the book?
Yeah, anything that's gonna help communicate the thing or an interest in the thing quicker than I could with my own words, it's always going to be like we'll see some change from it, but I don't think that the book by and large, because I've not marketed it for it to be available to people in large scale shit. It's kind of expensive. And on top of that, there's a ton of run-on sentences, which is pretty frustrating for me when I see them reading back on it. Uh,
That's funny, actually. Yeah, it's interesting, man. When you wrote it, I was like, oh man, that's cool. Because like I definitely want to write a book at some point, but like it's like when do you do it? Like when's the right time to do it? Like what's the goal of it? Is everything behind it all backed up so that the book to that is like a good like pipeline? You know, it's like so it was interesting. My favorite part about the book, though, ironically, is like I like the intro of it because I don't know. I spent time with you obviously on Zoom calls and did the cert and all that stuff, but like I don't know, it kind of like made me feel like I know you a little bit better when you talked about some of like the emotions you had growing up, you know, the brain stuff, and like even just like me being like, man, why does this guy talk like this sometimes when we're talking about like missing some of the cues? And then it was like I felt like the book kind of explained it that you had like really read so much, so like that's why, you know, you're kind of the Cat Williams of this niche, if you might say. Do you get that joke? Does that make sense? He went on and said that he reads 7 million books a week as a kid. He's read it's like a joke, you know?
yeah, I would say that it's all I mean, we're all making sense of our own environment, not just like exclusively where we grew up or who we grew up with, but um, our active perception of emotion. Like people will say this person has a good personality, this person has a good personality, this person's in a bad mood, whatever. At the end of the day, what we're really describing is the rate at which we adjust in their company, like our heart rate, our perception of like speed of things, the heat of things. And what that means for us is that we're essentially mirroring other people's excitement or arousal level. And if we don't have a good wherewithal of how maybe we don't want to arouse at the same rate as the people around us, maybe we do want to arouse at the rate or better. And if we can't, we're essentially antisocial. Not that we are choosing to be like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this kind of thing. It's like you physically aren't meeting the standard of the environment. So you're either going to put more fuel in the engine or you're going to try to do something that inflames the situation to increase your focus, increase your alertness. We're all stuck in some bullshit. Um, Labels are pretty damaging. I think that that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to be damaging for people. Like, I have arthritis, I have scoliosis, I have whatever. Okay, yes. So currently you're experiencing these symptoms. You don't know what it would be like if you were to spend 2 more hours per week to be a little more mobile. Would that reduce your symptoms? Well, you won't know until you've experienced that reduction, because there's going to be no thing to compare it to, right? We won't have any memory, we won't have any sense memory of it. And that's the thing that we're all living in. We're all kind of conditioning ourselves to remember our thoughts and feelings about the thought and feeling, as opposed to, look, by doing a novel thing, you're always going to like wipe the slate clean. So if you do the novel thing that you don't want to do enough, or you do it enough to support certain reflexes, then your body's going to stop making it such a problem to think about and or feel about that subject. My whole purpose in this is that imagine if why I was as alert and panicky was from a specific trauma, or it was from not having enough of an influence from this person in my life growing up, or this person, or this kind of education. Well, if that's something that can be rendered down into a supplement, so to speak, and we can give that to people, well, at the end of the day, I'm just socializing people. I'm just trying to have people like a dog park kind of get used to wagging their tail in public and not being fixated on their intention to be growling or to be shaking or to be in panic. And when you go around, I mean, dude, it's so easy. If you're a sociopath, you're probably living in this space, but most people are kind of in panic mode all the time. They've just put on their Sephora enough, or they put on their fade, or they've whatever. They've done the thing that helps them hide the feelings. And we're all like mentally ill because of it. So yeah, I mean, movement is fitness, but it's also you starting to learn how to understand the deeper integration of yourself, not just physically, but like the way information travels and the way that information creates meaning in your system. If you understand how and why the meaning is being created, then you can kind of condition where that meaning is going to go. I help people condition and coordinate the meaning that sense memory creates in the system without overindulging the notion of like, okay, well, let's check this, let's assess this framework, let's assess this framework. Because the deeper you get into the science of it, the more assessment comes into it. There's more tangibles to look at, which I don't want to do. I don't want to add more stress to look at stress. It's already happening inevitably.
Yeah, the assessment stuff is tough. It's like I go back and forth on it all the time, whether or not it's like I used to do like this crazy assessment, then I got to a really simple one, and now I'm like somewhere in between. But yeah, the assessment, especially like rechecking and reassessing every session, it's like I'm not doing this shit. Like
Yeah. And it
I'm
takes
looking
out
for
stuff.
long-term changes. I don't really care if your hip has 10 more degrees on the table on Monday. Like, let me know in 2 months when you can squat fully and jump and play basketball. Like, that's what I care about.
Yeah. Yeah. That thing that we came here for. I don't care about how it pictures comparatively. I care about how it feels.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, we were just really touching on the impulse of people. I mean, it was communicated to me as the id initially. I don't know what it was. It was some like Romeo and Juliet kind of reimagining as a space movie I watched in sixth grade. But it touches on the id and the whole notion of the id or your emotional center, so to speak, is that I guess the way that you can describe it better maybe is the forebrain, the midbrain, and lizard brain. Your id, your midbrain, is where memory's created and formed, where emotion is created and formed. And if you have yourself like a reactive state in your nervous system, it's pretty likely that that midbrain's inflamed. It's where your brainstem is. It's where your brain and your spine meet. So if most people are living in a space where they're physically inflamed in the part where memory is stored and created, where emotion is stored and created, it's not that they're experiencing anxiety. It's not that they're experiencing a lack of knowing themselves or whatever. It's that their physical body isn't in a state of presence. It's in a state of predictive expectation. So if all of us are in a state of predictive expectation, for example, and I'll give you this example as like a parable between how the mind and the body can both hold on to things. What's up, little man? I see a little fro on the corner of the screen there. Um, how the mind and the body can both hold on to things. Um, yeah, so I mean, I'm sure you've met a thousand people who have come to you and they're like, I'm trying to figure out how to do this, how to do this. I've been doing this. I've been holding this tension for a lot, or I've been doing this exercise a lot, and this muscle is developing. I just don't know how to get it to relax, or I don't know how to get it to look this way. Um, and that person has a problem with just a ton of tension in that muscle. So that muscle just lives in tension. It's like chronically tense. Okay, it's great that I can see your oblique all the time, but it looks like you have some kind of like wedgie in your fascia. Like there's
Yeah.
something that's tight on the inside. Same thing for a mental predisposition. So I guess the blue-haired people are probably the best way to think about this one for a quick analogy.
You talking about your people over there in Cali or?
Yeah, we have them everywhere, dude. But yes, the West Coast has the people. Um, so this predisposition, like looking around your environment, expecting someone to insult you or offend you, and then you bringing it to the public display of, hey, don't act like this, precipitously, like trying to prevent something from happening without giving one it the chance to happen, and two, people permission to like make mistakes and be ugly or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you assume my gender. Okay, well, this could have also gone in the direction of, um, hey, that's not actually how I call myself. Could you call me this? Whatever. Like in the anticipation of being offended or being hurt or being whatever, made to feel less than, our body goes into defense mode or it goes into run mode. And because so many of us are tired of running, or physically because of the demand that is required of us to be in like full sprint mode, most of us are just in like brace mode. So
Yeah.
that bracing is happening in our head, it's happening in our body, and as a parable between the two, we have this like slow, heavy, expectant nervous system in place of something that's ready, reactive, reflexive. And that means that people are stupider than they're going to be. They're less ready for fun. They're less ready for a good breath. They're less ready for being the best version of themselves because there's some version of themselves that's kind of like kicking the heel out from underneath them.
Yeah. Holding them back.
Yeah, yeah. So we specialize in taking off that cobwebbing. We specialize in taking off the brain fog. We specialize in taking off the lack of a want to do more, the lack of a want to excite more, which by and large is not really something that like it's an assumed value of fitness, but it's not a part of fitness that most people actually like pursue.
Yeah. They're not aware of it.
Are
Yeah,
you
but
are you finding, Ian, that people are coming to you with obviously these more biomechanical focuses, but your this kind of like lens on the nervous system is um, giving you a deeper insight into what might actually need to kind of unlock in them in order for them to kind of achieve their goals. Like it's kind of changing your approach, even though you might not necessarily like dump a bunch of nervous system info on them right away. It's kind of shifted your lens.
Yeah. I actually, I kind of think about it in terms of like, I try to use I've reshaped things to be as much of kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, and then use the minimum effective doses on the other stuff. Especially like for example, adding movement, right? Because I'm probably, I don't know, 5% good at, just because out of respect for it, like I know how well I could be at applying it. Let's say 5% just to be a number. So I'll stick within the stuff that I know is going to work and is going to be really, really good. And then if someone's looking for those deeper solutions, that's when I'm going to just refer out. And by integrating some of the more simple stuff, like specifically what we talked about, like, pinching the nose, inhaling, exhaling, the neck ISOs, the breath belt, behind the back breathing has been really good for me for anybody like missing shoulder IR. So kind of like finding the same problems, but then applying new solutions to them. But overall, really the way that we're running our business and moving in a direction is like, I actually want simpler problems and I'm marketing to simpler problems, but I'm keeping the tools to, address some of those more complex things by, as little doses as possible. Like for example, with the mobility training, like I'm not going to give you 5 days of mobility training, but I'm going to give you the most important 60 minutes of mobility training you could possibly have in that week, and then do it over 3 months and see how important that could really lead to. Um, and the people that are looking for like I have a client right now who's been through like all the top people, right? Like all the top people. When you think of biomechanics, you're probably thinking about those people. He's probably worked with them. And like one of the things I told him was like, hey man, like I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go down this biomechanical hole and find out which compensation happened first and then describe why you're in pain. I don't even care about the root cause. I'm going to say, like, your shoulder kind of sucks a little bit. You're doing too much. You don't have the range of motion for that exercise. That's been tweaking your knee a lot. And now we're going to take all those things away and just find you a real meet you where you are. And then we'll add in more specific stuff as we go. So then he ends up, and we need to add a little bit of some of the movement stuff. I just had him do behind the back, right? He was having elbow issues, and I was like, I honestly think it's your shoulder IR. So we addressed that. Now his elbow's feeling a lot better just in the next couple of days. So, like, that's kind of the way that I'm going about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For sure. You don't want to have to create a new language to produce value for the content. That's what I was saying earlier. Because people don't have that part of their brain developed that kind of like bridges feeling and thinking. There's always going to be a discord, and so it's not always going to be a fun experience having to take them to the door that you want them to open when they don't even know they had the key for it in the first place. Like, okay, my heart rate's racing, I'm feeling hot, I'm feeling like I've just sped up a lot. How is this good for me? This is making me feel uncomfortable. That's a feeling someone can have doing movement. And if someone's not ready for that and they came to you because they're having that experience going upstairs or something, and they're like, why the fuck am I having that doing this underneath the sandbag? Well, there's always going to be some panic associated with that. Um,
Yeah, I think by nature of marketing too, I'm getting way less of those people, and even more intentionally now. Like, for example, one of the big things that's been a struggle in my career, and I think I've lost a lot of money on, is like just not directly trying to market to pain, Not even talking about you guys, just in general. Like, for me to go up and be like, this is how you're gonna fix your knee pain. Here's this, these three exercises. Like, I think we could have made so much more money like that, but I've been trying to avoid that and trying to, like, I truly believe, even though you guys are doing a really great job in this gray area, but like, in the ideal world, I think if you were in America, you got hurt, like, it would totally make sense to be like, wait 2 days. If it's not a big deal and you're starting to feel better, you probably don't need to see anybody, right? Because just natural evolution, like, whatever, it's fine. And then after that, go see a physical therapist, work with the physical therapist, get those foundational things in, and then go back to a trainer and have everybody talk along the way, which really just doesn't happen ever, But I'm trying to stay away from some of the, it's like, I want to be aware of it. I want it to be a toolbox that I have, but I don't want to, like, really dive too deep into that area, because to me, I get a lot of benefit and a lot of, like, teach. Like, I just had a session right before this on, like, someone that hasn't been doing any plyometrics, and we got him to start plyometrics. Like, that's the type of shit that I love. Like, I'm like, all right, cool, this is great. You're happy, you're hot. We're not even thinking about your feelings. You're hot because you've been jumping for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, that's super simple for me. So, because I got into some, over the years, I was really solving a lot of complex issues, and, like, you can only do so many of them, because it kind of, like, drains me both mentally and physically. Like, even what you're talking about, like, that communication to get them there. So I just found it a lot easier to work with people that are in a different place right now. And, using our marketing, and even something as simple as this, like, directly saying it, like, hey, like, go to Nate before you come to me if you're getting hot on the stairs. You know what I mean? So it's just, like, kind of the approach as where I'm at right now. I think the idea that we talk to the people, we are, like, with marketing, like, you talk to the people, and, like, really taking responsibility for the idea that, like, the people that are finding you are finding you for a reason. And, like, me trying to hold myself accountable on that, on even everything, like, even, like, reposting an old thing that did well on Instagram, but, like, it doesn't really align with, like, some of the words that I'm using now. It's like, fuck. And then next thing I know, I got a DM, hey man, blah blah blah, like, some crazy situation. It's like, oh man, I could tell that one wasn't the one, like, it. So hopefully that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, this is honestly a continuum of like, okay, I can make some people listen to me for this reason, so I'm gonna say these things. I can make some people listen to me for this, so I'm gonna say these things. And you're practical about what makes sense for your business. You're not trying to solutionize like, okay, this is the way that your spine turns, and this is the way the spine greases itself, and then this is how your arm and spine say what up in the morning. And because of that, there's not this like identity fabricated around the motions or the movements. But dude, there's so many people like that creating this notion of this is how you have to move. This is how you have to think about motion, or you can't do this because this is gonna be you moving wrong. When at the end of the day, I mean, there's not like a you can't move like this sheet. There's only, and this is something unique to each of us, pain registry and like um fear, panic, expectation, some kind of perception, sensory perception that tells us, hey, I don't like this, or hey, I like this. So we're all finding our tribes. We're all finding the animals we want to like look the most like, move the most like. And hopefully some of us understand that there's a quality of how the body and mind mirror each other and get sick together.
Yeah, and hopefully I eventually look like someone that someone wants to look like so that I can start getting some more clients because of that and make it real easy, you know? That would be nice too. It's been a long time since I got a client like that, I'll tell you guys, you know? It's funny. It used to happen all the time, but
When they reach out for six packs because you have one.
yeah, like when I was younger, oh yeah, you look like a trainer, and then it's just like so easy. Now I get the, oh, you're a trainer?
Yeah,
Interesting.
dude, I got
You
that
know, it's
recently.
like, yeah.
I was
And
with
then
a
like
client.
then they'll like find me on Instagram and be like, hey, by the way, I actually do want to work with you. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's like I found out you're actually smart instead of just hot, you know? So like that's cool, you know?
Yeah. Uh, I had someone surprised. I was with one of my athlete clients, and they're like, "Yours trainer?" It's like, yeah, I used to be in better shape.
Yeah, it's like let's just be upfront about it, you know.
Yeah.
I had a kid. I'm sorry. Like I don't know what to tell you, you know.
I'm like, I don't have any excuses. I don't know what to tell you.
I've been eating a lot.
Yeah.
Ian, I'm curious, and it's very much like the opposite of what you were just talking about with your autoimmune stuff. I
Yeah.
imagine you had to kind of go pretty deep down the rabbit hole. Is probably part of the reason why you went into the MoveMed stuff. Again, obviously not the type of client you're looking for. You're not interested in like working with people with autoimmune. But if you were to just kind of give a little bit of like simple like starting points of like what factors did you kind of realize were actually a larger contributor to the stuff you were dealing with than maybe you would have expected at first, and what's some maybe like simple advice you can give someone who might be dealing with autoimmune?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the first thing I think is actually like you can't beat the basics 100%. So like for example, like I was cold plunging, you know, I'm doing sauna, I'm doing supplements, all this type of stuff. When I first started, I like disaster did the carnivore diet, blah blah. But it was like I was really just eating bacon every day, you know, it didn't really turn out to be that great. So like really doing the basics well, like simple things like getting enough sun, you know, walking was really big, just like kind of always getting some level of movement in. Even the cars were like you could use some of your stuff too, but like the idea of just like, hey, my toes, my feet are swollen, like should I just not move them all day? No, like let me move them. Like even opening up your hand 100 times, like a super simple thing like that. Um, and then ultimately like finding the right people, like get to the people that are going to help you. You don't have to do it on your own for sure. So like you know, my biggest turning point was actually getting to the functional nutritionist, doing tests on my gut, doing blood tests and doing that. It's a slippery slope though too, because you know, just like all those Instagram posts that you see where it's like you can't eat anything nowadays, and then it's like someone who like takes a sip of water and it's like water's bad for you, and then it's like, oh, I had eggs are bad, blah blah blah. Like, you know, you really, once you start looking for solutions, you really feel like that, and it sucks. It's the worst. It's like what's left for me to even do that I don't have to worry about? And then the next thing would be to actually get on a plan for yourself. Like I said, finding the right people, and the something that I see a lot with my clients too, and even myself on like in different ways is the price of being stressed and worried about something is often worse than the actual thing. So like, you know, hey, oh, I ate a little bit of gluten. Like, okay, but like you had this huge stress response because you're worried about it. And now it's lasting hours after you even had that avocado toast. Like, relax, dude. It's not that big of a deal. So like when you get heightened up and like everything hurts like that stuff is like you just like again going back to like being introspective, thinking about your mind, your response to all these things, like that plays a really big role when you're really, really sick.
Yeah, and there's
Totally.
an interesting parallel between like somebody having that same reaction to like a bit of knee valgus or like
Yeah.
whatever they think is the wrong position of the shoulder. And I think that's something that we try to you almost have to do exposure therapy to some degree and be like, you're going to be okay. Like the knee can come in just a bit here. You're going to be all right. And it's okay if there's even a little bit of discomfort. Like you haven't ruined things because you're experiencing some discomfort. You might actually be kind of working out or having your brain recognize like, oh yeah, if I am going to go into this range, there might be a positional thing that I need to figure out. And ideally that's more of a subconscious process that and
Yeah,
a
I think
process.
the spine car and like just doing cat cow, I think that's a good example of like what you're talking about. Like, oh yeah, so like my one doctor told me I can't round my back, and then like I saw this other person said I'm really extended. It's like, all right, like we're gonna go on the ground and you're just gonna round your back and extend your back. And you're like, oh, all right, cool. So I didn't die. I actually feel a little bit better, and it's like now I'm actually talking to my spine instead of like hating it and saying it's gonna hurt me, right? So like and just self-limiting beliefs come up in everything, right? So like that's one of the biggest parts of our jobs is to identify self-limiting beliefs and then use language and exercise to kind of overcome them, because nothing's going to kill you like a self-limiting belief. It follows you everywhere.
Yeah, we're exercise babysitters, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm more of a principal, I think, but yeah.
An exercise principle.
I've graduated.
Nice. Yeah, man. End all be all is that there's always going to be a quality of integration that people want for that they know and they don't want for because they don't know about it. I think a lot of what movement is the what they don't know is a part of an like a integrative quality, and our system is just mostly integrative. We try to bring everything together in a physical and mental capacity, and that is not to say like we're trying to overload everything, overclock it, and get it better than it was. We're trying to get it better than it has been because it's been overclocked.
Yeah, return to that baseline.
Yeah, sweet. Um, well, you've gone through level one. You've done a number of the tempering exercises. You've done the belted breath work. You've done the so as far as the breath work stuff you've done, how do you find that the belt has helped you achieve that? Or achieve the things that you sought after for a while? And how do you feel like they differ? Like, what is the
I think
value?
it's just, I think to me it's like it's a fire starter. It's like a accelerant. That feedback that you get on what's actually expanding makes such a big difference to me. Like actually feeling it expand, especially when someone like a lot of the people we've been talking about that like don't have that body control, they're so unaware of it. Maybe they're squeezing it too hard, whatever it might be. So getting that feedback directly from the belt has been an absolute game changer. And I also just think of it as a progression in a lot of ways too. Like you just make it tighter and now you have it as an added load. So I like that too. Um, that's definitely been one of the bigger takeaways. I really like the idea, although I get that it's kind of like, a little bit of the opposite direction of where you're going, but the idea that you can add those things and get a lot of value from them without adding a lot of time to your week. So again, like minimum effective dosage, right? Like just how you use the belt and like how I use the belt, like you can literally just wear it for like an hour every day. And I think that you would get significant benefits over time just by doing that, and like not even doing exercise or anything, just by wearing it, being a little bit conscious of a breath here and there. I think that'll make a really big difference. And the sandbag, I really like the sandbag, especially at night. I like it as just like almost like a bedtime, like a nightcap kind of vibe, to just kind of get crushed and relax under it. And I think that's been huge for me too. And I also look at that as added load too. I think the idea is that like it's really hard to load breath work. Like how do we quantify that? How do we load breath work to make it so that you're getting better at that? And I think the breath belt and the sandbag for me are the perfect equation for adding that load to things.
Right. Do you think it's because of the muscles that we don't target in those areas? Do you think it's because of the positions we take in those exercises? Do you think it's because of the fluid response, almost like you're palpating something or squeezing something to
I think it's all that, but I also think it's like it's literally the same thing as if I put you and I put a weight on your back. Like you have to work harder to not let the weight push you into the ground, right? So like if I put the sandbag on you and you've been going like doing all, so for, okay, here's a good example. Okay, so one of the things that I use that's different from you guys is where some of the stuff that you would use to get chest expansion, you would put someone in a position that directly challenges their chest and makes it almost harder to get chest expansion to then force them to go, I have to expand against this, right? Or you lay on a ball, the ball smushes you, you have to push the ball out to get the expansion, right? One of
Yeah.
the things that I would do, especially earlier on, and that I use in my toolbox, is the idea of choosing a position based off of the fluid dynamics that actually drives the air there, but it does it in a passive, relaxed, letting go way. So, for example, with inverted breathing, you would flip over. Say I went like palms down, my hips would get higher than my ribs. The fluid dynamics would then push the water, the fluid, the air towards the front of my chest and my upper rib cage because I'm inverted. And then I would relax and let that expansion come. That's really great. But if you're, 16 weeks in and we're still only getting chest expansion by letting go of something, then you don't really have that outward strength, that ability to create the intra and thoracic pressure to create force outward. Now, can we do a bench press? Can we like load that up in different ways and do abs and cable stuff? Of course. But what is more directly loading? The fucking belt that's literally squeezing the hell out of you, or all these other exercises that might load some obliques. So I kind of look at it like that in terms of a progression model, because I think a lot of the people, at least in my experiences, with the people that are already squeezed, already holding on tension, you put the belt on them and it doesn't really go well right away. Like they need to ease into it, especially if you actually squeeze enough with the belt. Because now they're just like, all right, I can't do anything, right? So some people might need to learn to let go before then they learn to extra pressurize or work against force. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, the bracing and the yielding. Some people are more yin, some people are more yang. Honestly, this is all just already done up or scripted conversation in Eastern medicine or Eastern tradition. Effectively, we're just rediscovering stuff that maybe we have more branches of education surrounding the topics of, so we can talk about physical science, mental science, emotional science, and not just it all be chi or something of the sort.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's man, it's so impossible. It's not impossible, but it's so hard to really invent something. That's why, like, I'll have other coaches be like, "Hey, man, I saw that this other person posted a video of the exercise that you posted, and I wanted to tell them that they stole your exercise." And I was like, "Please do not do that. That was so. This is like the worst thing you could possibly do for me. I didn't create shit. I'm just using stuff that's helped me before, like." I don't want to be known for the Ian calf raise or some shit like that. Like I do not care about that at all. And I think it actually holds us back a lot because you got people like what time do you have to be policing another person's Instagram for somebody else? Like what a weird character to be in this world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. That was the beginning of Instagram when I got into it. It's all I was experiencing because I wasn't in on the know on the there's a lot of functional groups, functional camps.
Yeah, I did a hinge one time and they were like, this is a foundation hinge. And I'm like, dude, I honestly have never even heard of foundation. I had to like look it up and I was like, oh, it looks cool. Like it actually looks cool. Like there's cool stuff in here. Like I see a lot of similarities between what I'm already doing and what they're trying to achieve. And I'm like, but you know what? You know what didn't make me want to learn more? Having someone in that community trying to police me for posting a hinge. I was like, this doesn't make me want to go, oh, let me join your tribe now. Like that's not the type of person I want to be. So it even like works against the business owner, I think, in a way when you do that, if you're part of someone's community. Now if you're blatantly stealing stuff or something, then whatever. Or you're saying if the post says I created this, that's one thing. But like realistically, like not a lot of people are that much of an asshole.
You'd be surprised. I've had a ton of people kind of just like re-envision their business in the model of how I've been describing mine, but the quality with which they do it is always barring a tag or um shared philosophy or something like that. I mean, dude, there's so many people that want to be the next guru, and they've done the thing, they've been in the groups, they've like been recognized as being in the know, but they're like, I want to get to that next level. I want to be the guy that I've been going to for my events or whatever. Um, I can think of maybe 5 guys off the top of my head who have changed their business in a huge entirety of what they talk about, what they do. Um,
But there's such a good, you can do it. You don't have to do it like that. Like there's a good way to do it. Like even think about like all the people that you're sharing, like what is it, Jules and Mattia or whatever, and like your squad, like you can just, they're gonna grow just as well. And there's plenty to go around. I mean, I already referred you enough clients. You're going to be out of time soon if you're not already. So like there's plenty of people to go around. That's the other thing I think, especially like I'm reading a book right now and like we're actually just hired a business coach. So we're like redoing our whole business right now. And, you know, like, like looking at things from an abundance mindset is like so important, especially with the sales stuff. Like, dude, there's so many people that have never heard of either one of us. You know what I mean? And like, you're going to be able to get to them and then it's going to be so like, there's so many people out there to help. There's no scarcity at all. So I think that's really important to consider too when you're thinking about things.
yeah.
And you say, Ian, that obviously you're again not trying to be a guru. Do you just see yourself as just a communicator, just like an educator? Like you're taking known properties and you're kind of trying to present them in a way that makes sense to you, and you're just gonna see who resonates with that, and that's the business.
Yeah, I see myself as like a really well-rounded coach. And I find that I can work with a really diverse group of people, which also holds me back in a way because I think being really niche down from a business standpoint is actually really, really good. It's for me it's not good as fulfilling from a career standpoint. Like again, if I had to work with just 30 to 38-year-old males who hike on the weekends, I'd kill myself. Like that would be terrible, right? But like the fact that I work with a soccer player on Monday and I work with, someone who's a power lifter on Wednesday and then I have a cool mom on Thursday, like I love that. Like so I look at myself as someone who's like really done the work and continues to do the work to be humbled, learn from a bunch of different places, find similarities between those things, add them as tools to my toolbox, and then go and whoever shows up at my door, decide which tool is going to be the best for them. And one of those defining factors is how enjoyable it is too. I have one of the biggest epiphanies for me with my career is like, you might have the best way, but it's really the third way, the third best exercise. That's the one that they need because the first one might be too confusing. The second one they hate, so they're not going to do it without you. But the third one gets a little bit of all those things, even though it's not the best, it's the one that they're going to do the longest and they're eventually going to get the most out of. So when you have more tools and you can actually go like, fuck, I gotta put my ego aside. I know that one's perfect, but like I just watched them do it and it was terrible. And then it's like, all right, cool. This third one, now they're making really good progress. So it's just another version of kind of meeting them where they are. And then as an educator, which is also kind of like the second thing that I do, I think I embody exactly what I just said, and I try to teach people those things. And I also try to bring people in that can teach what I don't. Like I've had some weird situations lately with like, Nate came on and did a presentation for, Personal Trainer Academy, which is like my platform for coaches. And like just some people, it's like just so weird to like collaborate. Again, back to that scarcity mindset. Like I don't have that. I'm like, okay, I'll bring him in. People will find him. People will work with him. People will see him on my platform and go, wow, I learned something. I like this platform too. There's plenty for both of us. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's like working such a shitty mindset sometimes. But even lately, some of the coaches, it's like, yeah, like, hey, do you want to like collab on a post? It's like, no, like you just promote it on your own. And it's like, that's cool, totally get it. But like, it just doesn't make sense to me why we wouldn't work together in so many ways. And if you really truly care about the person in front of you, then you'd find them the best person for them, not just you or no one else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work.
It's hard to do, but and I think you'll be more fulfilled by that. You know what I mean? So like,
I agree.
you know, because you're actually working with the people that you want to work with. And plus, like, back to that original example, like, Erica literally texted me. She was like, "Oh my God, I love Nate. He's the best. He changed my life in 4.5 hours, blah, blah." You know what I mean? And it was like, all right, cool. Like, I got this person to win. I don't care if I didn't make any money or I wasn't there. It's like, I found the person, their solution, and I got plenty of clients anyway. So it's like, what's the problem? Like, work together.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Yeah.
There's no scarcity, man. The internet, we got so many people. There's so many people that are, you know, especially, you know, things are going crazy in a lot of ways in the US right now too. So there's going to be plenty of anxious people for a long time. You know what I mean? So, and there's always going to be people that want to work on their health. It might even get better, you know, with some of the, I don't want to say fake health, but like, honestly, it's starting to kind of seem like the Maha stuff is like super, like, a lot of the things that they said it was going to be, which sucks because I was really hopeful about all that stuff. But you know, hopefully that works, and even more people are looking to change their health in a better way.
I imagine we'll continue the uptake. There's always going to be more and more people who are getting more healthy as well. More and more people are getting less healthy.
Yeah,
It's just like the crowd grows on both sides.
Yeah, and whatever fads are not really serving people will get weeded out in time as they just like prove to be kind of ineffective. So things will stand the test of time in this industry pretty well.
yeah. Even CrossFit's gone now, right? They're getting sold again for like the second time. They really fucked up. The one guy died swimming or whatever, and like ruined their whole entire thing. And I don't know if you guys have it near you guys, but like High Rocks is like insane right now. Have you guys heard of High Rocks?
Yeah,
No.
HYROX.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's basically CrossFit, but you just don't have a barbell. So honestly, brilliant, right? Like talk about what we were talking about earlier, where you're trying to recreate something. You're like nothing's new. Like what a brilliant job to be like, most successful thing in a really long time. Let's take away the potentially, like, honestly, I think statistically it's probably not even that bad, to be honest with you, injury. Like I think that's overblown, but you know, the thing that everybody's scared of, the skilled aspect of it with the barbell, and now you got just people shirtless, good looking, working as hard as they can together in the same room, like, and it's crushing. Like I just trained last night at my gym, and you know, the one I work out of, and there's a High Rocks class going on behind me. There's like 55 people there, and I'm like stuck in a corner doing like
Right.
little isos with somebody, you know. So yeah, that's crushing right now.
Yeah, Orange Theory was the one I saw last before it. There's always gonna be something.
Yeah, that's a good rebrand. We're on a bike, but it's orange. It's like, but you also have the 2.5 weights. Like, yeah, but haven't we been doing that for like 25 years? Like, whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't go into a place like that and not feel like my eyes are bleeding. I
Yeah,
couldn't.
it's not yeah, it's not good. That's for sure.
Well, sweet man. I gotta get going shortly, but
Okay.
I want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us, taking the time.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys. So if you guys want to put something together or clip it and you guys want to collab on a post or something, just let me know.
Cool.
Sounds good, man.
Sounds
And you got the
Okay.
personal trainer academy going on that people can join.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to plug?
Um, Yeah, one-on-one coaching. So if you know some of the stuff I was saying resonated with you, reach out. You can do a consult call, and then we also have our training app, which is like, you know, all of our programs for one price, $1 a day. And yeah, and then if you're a coach, come learn on Personal Training Academy. Watch watch Nate's presentation, and go from there.
sweet. Appreciate you, dude.
Yes, sir.
Always a pleasure, and we'll probably have to do something like this soon.
Yeah, for sure.